This week, House Democrats took a step forward toward impeaching President Donald Trump and also paved the way for him to make good on his promise to replace NAFTA. Both issues came up late last month when Representative Raúl Grijalva sat down with Christopher Conover.
Shortly after public impeachment hearings began before Thanksgiving, Congressman Raúl Grijalva told us he believed the House Democratic majority would vote to impeach the president. But he rejected criticism that his party sidelined other pressing issues in favor of the proceedings.
The reality is that we've been doing our job in the House. There's only one branch of government that we control right now, and that's the House of Representatives. That's where the Democrats are in charge. We have sent up to 300 pieces of legislation to the Senate. McConnell hasn't moved on it. Everything from background checks and efforts to reduce gun violence, healthcare issues in terms of drug pricing. We've sent environmental issues. We've sent issues dealing with transportation and how to build an infrastructure and put people to work. We've sent about the security of our voting in 2020. And the list goes on and on. Those are all there. And for the president or any of the Republicans to say we are not doing anything, the abyss is the Senate. Who's in charge of the Senate? The Republicans. So if there is a bottleneck, it is in the Senate because they have not brought any major piece of legislation to the front.
We'll be handing out a memo from the Ways and Means Committee, you may have it, which explains why we are so proud of the distance that we have come from where we started with the administration on this legislation.
The same day Democrats unveiled their articles of impeachment, House Speaker Nancy Pelosi announced a deal on a revised version of the US-Mexico-Canada agreement, a move that both Pelosi and the president praised on Twitter. Leaders of all three nations signed the USMCA more than a year ago.
Republicans say the longer this doesn't pass, jobs in Arizona and other places end up getting hurt. Is that rhetoric, or is there a point where something just has to get passed?
I think at some point it's got to be a yes or no. And quite frankly, it would be good to get it at the beginning of the next session to see what we have in front of us. But, you know, I think that this fixation of this administration on tariffs and other means to try to control not only what's imported and exported, but also as part of foreign policy when it comes to Mexico, I will do tariffs unless you do this in terms of border security. Those issues, I think, have also complicated the situation.
On the issue of border security, Grijalva has consistently spoken out against the Trump administration's policies. This week, the Department of Defense Inspector General opened an investigation into the deployment of National Guard and active duty troops to the border, not long after Grijalva and other Democrats raised concerns about its legality.
And the reason for that is to make sure that we are following the constitutional protection that's there now, which says, quite frankly, that our military cannot enforce civilian laws. Immigration law is a civilian law. In the wheelhouse of Homeland Security and Border Patrol, that's where it belongs. And so we want to make sure that distinction. We want to make sure what they're doing, what training they're getting before they go there. You know, the men and women in uniform, this is not a reflection on them. I predict that many of them are wondering what they're doing in the middle of the Yuma Desert, watching what and doing what in a supplemental role.
Not long after he sat down for this interview, Grijalva traveled to Madrid with a congressional delegation to attend the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change, where they voiced support for the Paris Climate Agreement. Last month, the president began the formal process to withdraw the U.S. from the deal. Grijalva, who chairs the Committee on Natural Resources, has plans to advance the issue in the House.
What I hope to do is to working with the committee members and others to put together a climate change, resilience, sustainability, and that looks at our public lands as sources of a solution and looks at our oceans and coastal areas about resilience and the damage is being done to our oceans and to our waterways, and put those together, and in the area in which we have jurisdiction, to propose in legislation some solutions, some timetables, some steps in which we can turn this jurisdiction we have into something that contributes to the reduction in the warming that's going on in this globe.